Kareem Hunt is looking like the MVP waiver wire pickup of the season, while JuJu Smith-Schuster becomes a priority pickup after his monster Week 5 performance. We react to the Monday Night Football game and discuss our Week 6 waiver wire rankings on today's episode of Locked On Fantasy Football.
You are Locked On Fantasy, your daily NFL fantasy podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Locked On Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm one of your co-hosts, Michelle Magdziuk, and when I'm not doing this, I'm a researcher and fantasy analyst with NFL Network.
And I'm your other co-host, Vinnie Iyer. I'm not doing this. I'm writing about NFL fantasy and betting for sportingnews.com, including, before we got on here, the firing of Robert Saleh. Unfortunately, they did not fire Nathaniel Hackett from the Jets, so we'll have to deal with that. We'll get more on that next Monday night as we preview Week 6, but today we'll look at the Week 6 waiver wire.
Yes, today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. So really quick to hit on that Robert Saleh news. Shockingly, he was fired. I don't think anyone was really expecting that. It's not to say he doesn't deserve it. I mean, the Jets have been terrible for a long time now, but I don't know what this is going to change because his defense has been good. I mean, he's a defensive-minded head coach. They still have Nathaniel Hackett. They're calling plays. They still have Aaron Rodgers struggling. I don't think this really changes anything for the fantasy football world. So I don't know if there's too much to dig in there in terms of fantasy.
No, there isn't. And we can just move on. I mean, this is just a team that's hard to understand with Breece Hall and Braylon Allen, but I think there might be hope this week. I'll give you that teaser as we look at our running back and quarterback rankings later. So just keep that in mind. But man, if you had Kareem Hunt or JuJu Smith-Schuster somehow in your lineups together, what year is this, Michelle, in Kansas City? Like, it throw back to when they were on their team the first time. Hunt, when he was the leading rusher in the NFL with Kansas City, and then JuJu just picked up where he left off, filling in for Rashee Rice.
Yeah, I mean, Hunt right now, right? He's a workhorse. He got 27 carries last night. Remember, the week prior, he was their lead back as well, but that was his first game playing this season. That's his first game back with the Chiefs since 2018. So we were like, okay, we think he's going to get more workload as it goes. 27 carries, though, and a touchdown. And then you had the rookie Carson Steele fumble again. I don't know if it's necessarily put on him. I didn't look for sure, but he was the reason why that ball was fumbled. Luckily, they recovered. So, like, he's not going to get on the field anymore. But Kareem Hunt looked really good, and he finished as a running back 4 on the week. So, unfortunately, they have a bye, so you're not going to be able to start him next week, but you're just going to keep starting him. And then with JuJu, he just goes in the Rashee Rice role immediately. 8 targets, 7 receptions, 130 yards. He also looked good besides that one tip pass in the end zone. He couldn't come down with it. It forced the interception on Mahomes there. But I mean, are you picking up JuJu as a priority pickup this week? After the game, Patrick Mahomes did say it's going to kind of be a rotation with who gets the targets. But I mean, it worked with JuJu. I don't know why you wouldn't keep doing that.
Yeah, this is more showing you that the Chiefs system is superior. And sometimes a system is going to lend itself to just plugging in players that are going to be productive. You still had that great offensive line in the middle of Creed Humphrey and Trey Smith. So if you can run the ball and win up front, you're going to have the running back and benefit. And also the personnel has worked in his favor, right? Isaiah Pacheco's on the shelf. Clyde Edwards-Helaire, we'll see. I wouldn't drop Hunt immediately, right? Oh, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is coming. No. This is not saying this is a one-week thing. I mean, Andy Reid is not blind. Patrick Mahomes knows what Hunt just did. They have a history, a positive history with him on the field. So everything seems to be hunky-dory there. And then you look at the situation and say, well, Clyde Edwards-Helaire has not been that great, really. He might get a few touches. What he may do is finally push Carson Steele off this roster. I mean, come on. This guy is a joke. He shouldn't be out there. Samaje Perine, you got to keep in there a little bit to keep fresh. He's a good situational back, but he's not going to step into anything of note here. He's just a guy. Like, he might steal a few catches, a touchdown here and there, but it's still going to be Kareem Hunt, and we'll see how this works out. We have still a while until Pacheco comes back. So hold on to Hunt. If he's available somehow in your shallow leagues, go out and get him. Now, JuJu Smith-Schuster is available in a ton of leagues because he's JuJu Smith-Schuster. We did not think he's going to come back and keep in mind when he was with the Chiefs before, he was a borderline wide receiver 3. But to say he's going to go off and they're just going to throw all the routes, Rashee Rice, scheme the guy open, wide open to run downfield, it's crazy. But it's the Chiefs. This is what they do. It's annoying for the rest of the league. But it's great for fantasy that they can plug and play players. We'll see about how long Rice is gone, but he's not going anywhere. I know you want to say that, okay, the targets are going to other guys in different games, but I think he has his boys. It's going to be Xavier Worthy getting the key touches for speed. You've got Travis Kelce, Mr. Reliable, still putting up numbers. And then you're going to have JuJu fill in for Rashee Rice. So, and it's not complicated what Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes are trying to do. So enjoy it. And JuJu, yeah, I never thought he was going to be a higher priority. There was a lot of other good wide receivers we'll get into in a moment, but wow. It's really good to see systems that work. It's just so nice when you can just say, okay, I know what this guy's going to do in this particular role.
Yeah, it's crazy that his 130 performance last night, 130 receiving yard, is the most by a Chiefs wide receiver since they traded Tyreek Hill.
Okay. Crazy.
I just love it for him. But yeah, I am willing to pick him up and roll with it because he looked exactly like Rashee Rice out there. It was crazy. Now Travis Kelce gets his 10 targets again. It seems like as long as Rice is out, he's going to be highly involved. He's great. He still hasn't scored a touchdown. It's been 11 straight regular season games without a receiving touchdown, the longest drought of his career. We need to get those going because even the last 2 weeks, he's been tight end 5, tight end 7. We're happy with that after the first 3 weeks, but that's still not Travis Kelce. We're used to the, tight end 1, tight end 2 on a regular basis. So start scoring those touchdowns. However, he did get 3 red zone receptions last week. So they'll come, right?
Yeah.
Sooner or later, they're going to come.
Yeah, it's just weird. They took him out on the play that was tipped and Kalen Saunders intercepted that. That was a weird play by JuJu. That was a bad play. But then you look at that, why was he not in the game? But then the question mark is maybe they need to devise a new play. Because the Steelers did score on the same type of play with Pat Freiermuth from Justin Fields, a little shovel pass in the middle of the line and just run past it. But I think teams have kind of seen that a lot from the Chiefs, and they've stopped it twice now this season. So those were 2 potential touchdowns we know from the past that were gone. Maybe just little things here and there. But look, they have a bye. Andy Reid crushes it after a bye. They're playing the 49ers, so it should be an exciting, high-scoring affair coming out of it in Week 7. I think he's going to scheme better ways to get Kelce open in the red zone after this break. So I do say bigger things are coming for Travis Kelce, and the tight end landscape stinks so much in fantasy that the guys who are producing, like a Pat Freiermuth or a Kelce, are going to be good going forward.
Where did Pat Freiermuth come from? He has not been producing at all.
He scored last 2 games. I think he's starting to feel it. I would say he's higher than we think on right now. And as long as your boy George Pickens starts to pout, everyone's going to throw to Freiermuth a lot more often. And he scored the last 2 games. He had a big drought. He's being involved a lot. So, but I'm saying that's it. Like a guy who scores and is involved, like a Freiermuth, is a good play right now. And that's why he could not discount the consistency here of Travis Kelce, and hopefully Sam Laporta will be back to normal after his bye week this week.
Yeah, for sure. Now Patrick Mahomes, watching him looks fantastic, right? He had a great NFL game. He's playing well, but again, a bad fantasy game. He is simply not a good fantasy quarterback, and he hasn't been since early 2023. It's been now almost a full year that he has just been very, very disappointing for fantasy. Finishes as a quarterback 20 on week 5. So far this year, it's been quarterback 15, 14, 17, 17, 20. I don't know what to say about Patrick Mahomes, but I don't think he's a quarterback you must play every week.
Yeah, I do have to add something to this Pat Freiermuth discussion because it came out of nowhere. But he is right now right behind Jake Ferguson and Cole Kmet, behind Trey McBride as tight end 9. So you're getting good value from Pat Freiermuth. So
no, that's terrible. Isaiah Likely is a tight end 4, and he hasn't done anything for.
I know. So that kind of tells you so if a guy's producing, he's got to start, and that's it. And Kelce is producing, so just keep that in mind. So to get to Patrick Mahomes, the problem with Patrick Mahomes is the Chiefs. They're too good. Where was the Saints' competitive nature? Patrick Mahomes is not going to care about his stats if they can Like, they didn't even really try, and they beat the Saints. Like, the Saints, they allowed that big play to Rashid Shaheed up the middle, but they didn't even sweat that out. It was a 3-point game at that point. It was close, but like, if these teams do nothing and they can run the ball at will and play defense, why is Patrick Mahomes going to put the ball up, right? He's not going to put the ball up. So he did have 300 yards. If he had a couple scores, he would have come through. But unfortunately, that one score turned into an interception. So you got -2 out of that. So it's weird. Like, the Chiefs are just like, we're just coasting through. No one's really challenging us. Someone has to push the pedal to the metal on the Chiefs. Maybe it'll be the 49ers here in week 7. Finally, they could maybe have a little bit of high scoring affair. We'll see. 49ers defense hasn't been all that great. So maybe that's a chance to go. But dare I say, Patrick Mahomes is more matchup based, not in the way you think, but when the Chiefs play good teams, then he's got to do more. And these type of games against teams like the Saints, get out of here. He's not going to do much.
Now, for the Saints side, really quickly, it was really Rashid Shaheed. He had that big 43-yard touchdown, finished with 86 yards in the day. You're happy if you started him.
Yeah.
Everyone else, disappointment. Kamara, disappointment. Chris Olave, 2 receptions, 10 receiving yards. And then Derek Carr gets hurt in the second half. So we don't know if he'll be ready to go for next week. He gets a nice matchup against the Buccaneers, but Derek Carr has been bad for fantasy for after weeks 1 and 2. Like, I'm not thinking about starting him. But for Shaheed and Olave, you really want Carr back there because, like, Jay Kaner, no thank you. 2 for 7 for 17 yards. Like,
he had no chance when he was in the game. It was just pathetic. And Olave disappeared. The Chiefs' secondary is very tough, so let's keep that in mind. But when we look at Derek Carr, the real Derek Carr is here. And you know how he stamps his arrival? Foster Moreau scores. That's like the real Derek Carr.
Yeah.
So congratulations, everyone. Derek Carr is back to where he's at, and we'll see. Those Spencer Rattler calls are going to become louder starting next week in New Orleans versus Tampa Bay.
Absolutely. Now we have to dig into our top priority pickups of the week. We're going to start our week 6 fantasy prep right after we take a quick break.
This episode of Locked On Fantasy Football is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. I did tell you I like the Chiefs last night to take care of business. They did. They comfortably took care of business there by 10 points against the very weak Saints coming in and leading Patrick Mahomes' bad fantasy day. That was the action that you could have got in on FanDuel Sportsbook. Now it's week 6. You got to get on the action. You got to continue. This is kind of the third of the way point of the NFL season. This is the time to get a big return on FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. When you get a hunch in the middle of the game, you can also check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. You'll get started with $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place your first $5 bet. That's only at FanDuel.com. Again, FanDuel.com. See what's going on here in week 6. Get in the action. A lot of things to get you on. And Michelle and I will give you some best bets along the way. So check it out. It's only at FanDuel.com. America's #1 sportsbook. We also have a new sponsor on the program, I'm excited to say. It's Hillsdale College. Time is our most precious commodity, so don't waste it scrolling through the same mind-numbing content for hours and hours. How can you spend it wisely to improve yourself? History, economics, the great works of literature, the meaning of the U.S. Constitution. Do you study these things in school? Probably not. Or even if you did, maybe you need a refresher. That's why you got to tap into Hillsdale College. It's offering more than 40 free, that's right, free online courses. Just here's a few that you can get. Constitution 101, the meaning and history of the Constitution. The Great American Story, A Land of Hope. The Rise and Fall of the Roman Republic, so you know how our society was formed. And again, a brand new documentary-style course on other systems, Marxism, socialism, and communism. Check it out. You can get a lot smarter there with Hillsdale College. All of Hillsdale's colleges are self-paced, so you can start whenever and tune in wherever. Plus, you can go deeper with readings, quizzes, discussions, or just enjoy the lecture. So really all that good stuff here to just make you great about our society, which is very important now with election, all that coming up. So check it out. Go to hillsdale.com/lockedonenroll. That's no cost. There's no cost. It's easy to get started. That's hillsdale.edu/lockedonregister. That's hillsdale.edu/lockdown. Again, hillsdale.edu/locked on. Check that out. All right, Michelle, as promised, we're going to dive fully into the Week 6 waiver wire. We gave you one great pickup in JuJu Smith-Schuster. He's on a bye, so he can't help you this week. So let's get into people that might be able to help you this week or the rest of the season. Let's look at Kirk Cousins and Caleb Williams. Now, I was surprised how far Kirk Cousins was down in the rankings. I really liked him last week. And what did he do? Threw for 509 yards and lit up the Buccaneers. Now, he's not going to do that every week, but he's in the groove, and we know what kind of quarterback he was with the Vikings, consistent top 10 guy, something to look at. And Caleb Williams, 2 solid games now in a row. Where are you going for the rest of the season? Caleb this week has the Jaguars, while you have the Kirk Cousins matchup with the Panthers this week.
Yeah, I don't think I trust Kirk Cousins to just go off now for the rest of the year, right? I mean, it was 3 of the first 4 weeks, he was a quarterback 24 or worse. And I know Caleb Williams didn't start off well either, but he has an excuse, right? He's a rookie. I guess Kirk Cousins is in a new system. But again, I think Caleb Williams has a much higher ceiling moving forward. He gets really nice matchups too. The Jaguars this week, then unfortunately a bye, but then the Commanders and the Cardinals. Now, both of those defenses have gotten a little bit better as of late, but I still think they're nice matchups for quarterbacks. And Caleb Williams has finished as a top 10 quarterback in 2 of the last 3 weeks. I think if I'm choosing one for the rest of season and just thinking about if I have to start them every week and hoping for upside to like have that get like that league winning type of quarterback, I'm going to lean Caleb Williams here. He's just playing better too. He's better. He's doing better throwing deep. He's doing better under pressure. Like it seems like the game's slowing down for him a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the matchup, it just keeps getting better. It seems like we had Rams, Panthers, now Jaguars. And again, the only thing that can maybe stop this offense for a while is the bye. But then my concern is what team is going to be leaning a little bit more toward the run, right? The Bears have done things with the run with DeAndre Swift, but I think they're going to open up the passing game a little bit more as we go forward. As Caleb has gotten more comfortable, you have pretty good blockers there, actually. The offensive line's held up pretty well for him, so that's going to get better. And the other thing Caleb Williams has that Kirk Cousins is not is he can give you some of that cheat code. I mean, it was not a lot, but 34 yards rushing is still 3 points, right? Some little extra he can score also in the red zone as a runner, so that also gives him a little bit of upside going forward. So don't discount that ability of Caleb Williams, and I think that definitely helps him. Now, Kirk Cousins, we'll see if the Viking or the Falcons get better as a team like the Vikings did, right? Is it going to be a situation where they get Bijan more involved? Their defense gets a little bit better. They're a little bit more balanced and don't get as pass happy with Zach Robinson at some point as the Falcons are a better team. That should happen at some point, right? They are a pretty good running team with their offensive line. If they get healthy and Drew Dahlman, the center, gets back, they'll start to run the ball a little bit better. So you're not going to see necessarily that consistent volume, but you could definitely see it with Williams, maybe increasing uptick for him while Cousins I don't think it's May. He has just peaked with his fantasy performance this year and what he did against the Buccaneers last week.
Yeah, I think, again, like Cousins can be a viable play, but I'm not going to go chasing his points from last week and dying to get him. Yeah. But Caleb Williams, I think is very interesting if like you're really struggling at quarterback. Like if you have Patrick Mahomes, you might want to go grab Caleb Williams and try to get that guy who can put up more points.
Cousins.
Yeah.
That's right.
Now, moving to running backs, there's 3 options out there that I think are the best, and it's Tyron Tracy Jr., Rico Dowdle, or Tank Bigsby. I would say Tracy is by far my top priority. Obviously, when Devin Singletary gets back, he's not going to have all of the workload. Hopefully, Singletary doesn't get back for this week because they get the Bengals, and that's amazing. But I do think Tracy Jr. is a very talented player. He's much faster than Devin Singletary. He can offer that burst. So I think he's going to be involved even when Singletary gets back. And they just have a really nice schedule coming up. Bengals, Eagles, Steelers, who've been let Dowdle run all over them. Commanders and Panthers the next 5 weeks. So I prefer Tracy over the other 2.
Yeah, I like Tracy too. And I think this injury of Devin Singletary might actually linger a little bit. He's had some injury issues in the past. Let's remember that from his time with the Bills and Texans, really. So that's one thing that could keep Tracy on the field. I was a little bit worried last week. I just plugged in. I had Singletary in a lot of leagues, and I just plugged in Tracy. I drafted him in a couple beyond Singletary. I plugged him in, and I was like, oh, no, here comes Eric Gray. He's going to score, and this is it. Tracy's not going to see the ball. Then, oh, thanks, Eric Gray. Fumble at the goal line, Tracy's in there. He rumbles for 100 yards, like methodically. Like he runs off some really good chunk runs there at the end to get well above 100 yards. So I was very impressed. This rookie was quite amazing, and he's very talented. He's also a converted wide receiver from Iowa to Purdue. So he's got good hands if they need to run a little bit more and use him as an outlet receiver. He's going to be fine. So I do like Tracy and that talent skill set. I loved it coming out of college. And the Giants, I think, really got a good draft pick. And you got to hand it to them. I mean, between Singletary and Tracy, without Saquon Barkley, their running backs are still in pretty good shape here.
They are. And now when it comes to Dowdle and Bigsby, they have pretty tough schedules coming up. So with Dowdle, he gets the Lions this week, which are one of the hardest run defenses, and then a bye. So if you pick him up, you probably don't even want to use him next week. And then he has a bye. So, And then Bigsby, like you're just holding Dowdle for later on in the season, basically. And then with Bigsby, he gets the Bears and the Patriots the next 2 weeks. Not great matchups. And then right after the game, Jaguars head coach on whether Bigsby will replace Etienne atop the depth chart. He said, no, not at all. Travis is our guy. Tank had a good game. That's just the way games go. So it's not like I'm even trusting Bigsby this week against Chicago. He's going to be ranked somewhere in my running back 30s, but it's not like I'm dying to pick him up either. He's just a depth piece at this point for me. So again, Tyron Tracy, then Dowdle, then Bigsby for my order. But also check on Jalen Warren of the Steelers because he would be right up there with Tracy. He will take over the Steelers backfield as soon as he's back healthy. He fits the Arthur Smith system much better. And Najee Harris stinks. He stinks. I'm ready to say it. He's not good.
Yeah, we've given him so many chances in fair matchups. He's not come through, and he's just is kind of like an uninteresting plotter. Like when you look at Tracy, he's like got some juice going outside, and Bigsby. Look, I know what Doug Peterson said, but like the Jaguars need to win games, and who was the key for them winning that game against the Colts? It was Tank Bigsby running wild. Now he kind of reminds me a little bit of Devin Achane from last year, where he's a big run dependent guy, and we'll just keep saying, oh, is he just big run dependent? Oh, this is going to be like, does he get enough touches? Then like the big reason I think that they're not going to fully commit because the quarterback doesn't want to hear it because he's good friends and teammates for a long time with Travis Etienne. So they don't want to hear it, but Bigsby's been better. So in a matchup where the Jaguars can run, and actually the Bears, I mean, you look at the Chuba Hubbard run from last week, that was a long run for a touchdown. You can use Bigsby. I just think just pump the brakes. Don't just lock him in as an RB2. I think he's a very strong flex play for sure in a lot of matchups. So keep that in the back of your mind, but Etienne is not totally going anywhere.
Yeah. And it's not, I mean, this doesn't make me excited for Etienne at all. Like,
no.
We did not,
that's the biggest takeaway.
We didn't like him as a pick this year, and I don't like him any better now. That's for sure. Maybe even worse. Now, Jalen Tolbert and Josh Downs looking like the best pickups at wide receiver right now. Sure. Jordan Whittington would be, but the Rams have a week 6 bye, and then we don't know. Cooper Kupp could be back. Puka Nacua could be back shortly as well. We'll see that. But if Puka's still gone, then Jordan Whittington is a very good option entering week 7. But for now, would you go with Josh Downs or Jalen Tolbert as your priority pickup at wide receiver?
Yeah, it's hard because there's a little bit of ambiguity with the Colts back or quarterback situation, right? Are we going to look at Joe Flacco in there and he's been targeting Downs a lot in the short pass game, or because Downs got healthy as Richardson got hurt, are they going to say, hey, throw to Josh Downs, Anthony Richardson, get him more involved? So there's a chance that Downs would be okay with either quarterback. So that's in his favor because Alec Pierce and Michael Pittman seem to be up and down flashes here. But then you look at Jalen Tolbert, you have the Brandon Cooks injury. This team is throwing a ton. They've been talking him up for a while. He had a little bit of a struggle as a younger player, but now he's in the groove. Dak Prescott trusts him. He looks like he's going to be the third consistent option for a high-volume passing game with CeeDee Lamb, who's getting a lot of attention, and Jake Ferguson. So I would lean a little bit for upside for Tolbert. I think if you're looking for someone who can help you in PPR leagues, catch 6 balls for 70 in a lot of weeks, that's what you're looking for Downs. But if you're looking for a guy who can explode, like Tolbert did against the Steelers, he's the guy that you're looking for.
Yeah, Tolbert should have a really nice week too. So if you need someone to start this week,
Yeah,
he
very
gets the
much it.
Lions. Gets the Lions, like you brought up. Brandon Cooks isn't there. He's going to get targets in a high scoring game. Love that for him. Just check for Darnell Mooney quick.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's not out there, but he is
Yeah.
he is available in 41% of leagues. So maybe you're one of those 41%. But if you're listening to this podcast, probably not. But make
No,
sure
we
you
told
grab
you to take
him.
him.
Yeah.
And Rashid Shaheed now should not be available in your leagues, but they still might be. Someone might
Yeah.
have dropped him, whatever. But yeah, last week Mooney pretty much said he should be played every week as a wide receiver 3. And the matchup this week is really good against the Carolina Panthers, so things should keep going there. So what I like about all these guys, Downs and Tolbert and Mooney, you can play them except for Whittington. You have to wait, but you can play them right away, which all these guys we've talked about, which is great.
Yep. And then 2 last quick notes here before we move on to our streamers of the week. Tucker Kraft, priority pickup at tight end. If you need a guy, he is now the tight end 3 on the week after his 2 huge weeks, tight end 4 in week 4, tight end 1 in week 5. But he's on the field a ton, getting targets, priority pickup there. And then if you roster Aaron Jones, you might want to consider grabbing Ty Chandler. The Packers, he's not on the Packers anymore. The Vikings have a week 6 bye. But he did get injured last week. He's week to week. We'll see if he's ready. But if you want to have insurance for week 7, grab Ty Chandler. I don't think you're really going to be fighting against anyone else for him. So that's okay as well. You don't have to use him as a priority. Just make sure to grab him and stash him. Ty Chandler, that is, if you have Aaron Jones. We're going to get into our streamers of the week at the quarterback, tight end, and defensive spots here right after what we hear from one of our sponsors. This episode of Locked On Fantasy Football is brought to you by the Game Time app. Buying tickets to your favorite events shouldn't be stressful. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater near you. With killer deals on last-minute tickets and their best price guarantee, you can stop stressing over the tickets and start getting hyped for the fun you'll have. I've used this app 1 gazillion times, and I can tell you it's the best app for multiple reasons. But personally, I love that I get to see the images of my seat before I buy, so I know what my view is going to be at whatever event I'm going to. That's super, super important to me, and they make that very easy to see that. You can also buy tickets in a matter of seconds, which I'm very impatient as well. So, like, I want things to be fast, but literally like 2 taps and you're set on the Game Time app. And then tickets are sent directly to your phone, so you never have to dig through your email. Take the guessing work out of buying tickets with Game Time. All you have to do is download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms to apply. Again, create an account on the Game Time app. The code is LOCKEDONNFL, LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. I was going to have Derek Carr as a possible streaming option before last night's game, but he looked bad and then got hurt. So I don't even care if he comes back healthy. But the Buccaneers are a great defense to play against. But moving to other options here, I think the top 2 are to stream off waivers would have to be Daniel Jones against the Bengals or Joe Flacco against the Titans. Unless Caleb Williams is out there on your waivers, then he also becomes a great one against the Jaguars. But where would you rather go? Daniel Jones against the Bengals or Flacco if he plays against the Titans?
Yeah, I'll say there's a little bit of a asterisk with Flacco. If Jonathan Taylor plays, I'm not sure I want to go with Flacco because I feel like Titans kind of stink. It could be just a grindy type game. I think the Titans will come out and run. The Titans are kind of a tricky defense, right? I mean, they've got some pieces. You can beat them, I'll say this, but I'm not all that excited for Joe Flacco, only because I think he got a bit lucky last week. I'm going to say that with his numbers. Like, he was just chucking the ball up there. And
that's Joe Flacco's
like, I know, but
but
that's the question. Do you feel lucky as a fantasy player and you're just thinking he's going to put it up? I mean, I'm not sure. I cannot tell. This is either going to be extremely high-scoring game with the Titans who are coming off a bye, or it's going to be one of those ugly, ugly games. I cannot tell. It could be either one of those things. But I do know that Daniel Jones is going to be involved in a pretty high-scoring game. I mean, right now, Joe Burrow leads the NFL with 12 touchdown passes. He's the highest-rated passer in the league. He's going to rip this Giants defense to shreds. And then you look at Daniel Jones, he's actually, Michelle, had 3 very solid fantasy games out of 5. He had that terrible week 1 game coming back from the knee, and he was just not right. But he's looked good. Like, he's gotten multiple touchdowns. He didn't have Malik Neighbors last week, and he still got it done with Wan'Dale Robinson and Darius Slayton. He's not running as much. He should run a little bit more. That'd be great to add to that, and maybe he will, seeing what Lamar Jackson did to the Bengals. Maybe that element will come back. But Brian Daboll's play calling is kind of getting in his head right now, and that's good. That's good for Daniel Jones. I don't think this is going to be like a guy you look at it every single week. He's obviously stuck in like really bad matchups, right? But you look at good matchup where they can run the ball, open things up, he's going to have success. And this is one of them. At home on Sunday night, he's going to have high volume. So Daniel Jones is more playable than you think and probably should be rostered as a backup in a lot of leagues. He's right now average scoring QB 18. And that's after having really 2 microscopic games, right? He can get into the top 12 at some point with his play. So just watch that. I mean, some things surprise us, but I think like we're looking Sam Darnold and Derek Carr, these guys got off to a hot start, but I think Daniel Jones might have a little bit more sustainability, especially if Neighbors returns in this game.
Yeah, Jones has been a top 12 quarterback in 3 of the last 4 weeks. He's
you can't argue with it, right?
Yeah, and I think with Neighbors back against this Bengals defense, he's a solid start. Like, I think he's actually a pretty safe start this week. Now, Joe Flacco somehow has higher ceiling than Daniel Jones because
he throws it up.
His last 5 starts in the NFL, Joe Flacco's been the quarterback 6, 10, 3, 4, and 4. Insane on the week. And like the Titans haven't played anybody, so we don't know if they're a good defense or not. They played Malik Willis, allowed 25 fantasy points to him. Aaron Rodgers, that Jets offense stinks. Tyler Huntley, who cares? Caleb Williams in week 1, who cares? Like, we don't know if the Titans defense is good or not. Joe Flacco is also an option. I think I lean Daniel Jones though, but if Flacco plays, I think he's a good option as well. Now, moving on to tight end, there's not many options out there, right? It's Cade Otton, who we throw out every week. Doesn't have a very high ceiling, hasn't scored more than 8 fantasy points in every game this year, but is on the field, is involved in some games. Maybe Mike Gesicki in that Giants game, or maybe on the opposite side, Theo Johnson for the Giants against the Bengals. 4th-round rookie, has run the 8th most routes among tight ends this season and did have 5 targets, 5 receptions for 48 yards in week 5. Maybe he's starting to get hot. And which way would you go there? Theo Johnson, Mike Gesicki, or Cade Otton?
I know who my guy is. It's Cade Otton. Like, I think he's overdue for a touchdown. Like, he needs a touchdown. It's coming, I think, this week. I wrote it in my start set column for Sporting News. Like, he's danced around, been involved a little bit. But this week, I think he finds the end zone because, again, we look at this matchup. I mean, the Buccaneers get the Saints. So the Saints have not been the same in tight end coverage this year, partly because they have some linebacker injuries and that. And they can be beat by the tight end. Now, there's just only one game that they didn't have. So I think Otton should be a little bit more involved. And one thing we know about the Saints, what do? Typically contain Mike Evans with no matter who's out there. If it's Marshawn Lattimore or anyone else, they usually contain Mike Evans. That's going to open things up for Otton this week. And Theo Johnson is intriguing, but I think if I'm going to go for a cheap touchdown, I think I'd go Gesicki. I can't believe you talked about that, but
I'm cutting out Mike Gesicki. Like, I'm not starting him. He has 3 targets over the last 2 weeks. Like, you could get lucky with a cheap touchdown, but you can get
Eric
lucky
All starting there too. So
I think I'm fine with Cade Otton in a full PPR league. He at least won't give you 0. But honestly, I think Theo Johnson's going to be my sleeper tight end of the week. If you want to roll with some upside here, I know Malik Neighbors wasn't there last week. Maybe that's why he got the 5 targets, a career high, but he's on the field. He's running routes. He's talented too. And we know it takes rookie tight ends a second to get going, a good second. So I'm willing to take a shot on him if I'm desperate at the tight end position this week. Now at defense here to close out the show, I think there's 2 like obvious ones that you can get off waivers. It's the Eagles against the terrible Browns offense that Deshaun Watson's just getting sacked left and right because he stinks and also just the Browns stink. And then the Texans against the Patriots because, again, Jacoby Brissett and the Patriots offense stinks and he's getting sacked a ton too. Which way you go there, Eagles or Texans, or do you have another preferred defense?
Yeah, I do like the Eagles quite a bit coming off the bye. I think Vic Fangio is going to solve some things. This could be the week finally Deshaun Watson heads to the bench for Jameis Winston, which would be great. I did get the Commanders last week, and they worked out. They were very cheap. I played them in DFS with Brian Robinson Jr. in the stack. That worked out very nicely. So that was a cheap defense to go after. The Eagles, again, are unheralded. They're cheap. Everyone thinks their defense stinks. I don't think they stink. They just haven't all come together. There's a lot of young players there that could do that this week, definitely against the atrocious Browns defense. And Amari Cooper could be on the move. So watch that. If he's traded before this game, then it's giddy up for them. Then the Texans, they haven't actually had a big game. They've had, I think, one against the Bears, but it's not as good as you seems, but they are playing the Patriots, and this could be the game. Either Drake May starts or Jacoby Brissett gets benched for Drake May. So yeah, that says we're going to go there. Then one other one, they were surprisingly available in a lot of leagues. The Chargers. I think they're going to come out against the Broncos. Like Broncos are very fraudulent 3-2, and we'll see them be exposed here by the running game and defense of the Chargers.
Yeah, and I saw the Bears out there in a lot of waivers too. They play the Jaguars. I know that the Jaguars had a good offensive performance last week, but it's still Trevor Lawrence. He can throw, a pick at any time. The Bears defense is really good. So another option, but I don't even know if you have to dig like Eagles or Texans seem like the obvious choice. And you might need one of these, right? The Vikings are on a bye.
Yeah.
I do want you to answer this really quickly because I have to figure this out myself. I have the Vikings in a couple leagues. Do you drop them for a different defense or do you keep them on the bench? Because it's really hard to have two defenses.
With all due respect to Sam Darnold and even Justin Jefferson, the biggest fantasy weapon on the Vikings right now is their defense. And I don't think it's going to stop. Brian, I mean, they've come through in every matchup you can imagine. I mean, 49ers, they crushed that. So who's out there that's going to scare them at this point? I mean, they're just making a ton of plays. They're a big play-oriented defense. There's always that one defense, right, that you carry week in, week out, like the Cowboys that we've seen. Vikings are that. So keep them if you can. If your roster squeezes you out of them, hope you can get them. But I would keep the Vikings because they're a sneaky fantasy weapon all season long.
I know. And I think I am. It's going to be hard. It's going to be hard to do, but I am going to keep them. They've just been too dominant for me. That's for
Good
sure.
question.
Yes. Thank you. I thought it was. And good answer. That is it for today's show. Thank you to all for making Locked On Fantasy Football your first listen every day. Every dayers, we will be digging more into our week 6 fantasy prep starting tomorrow with our running back and quarterback rankings. Don't miss it. Bye, y'all.